Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Citadel, the only good town section in this series. And also, kind of an annoying place to go around because it's too goddamn big. um, One of the things about Mass Effect 2 and 3 that turned a lot of people off is that the town sections were very minimalized. They tended to be just really small hubs where you could talk to a few people and embark on certain missions when you had to. But the town section in Mass Effect 1, well, there's only really one true town section, and it's this one. It's quite expansive for what it is, but at the same time, it still has that feeling that it's too small for the Citadel, because the Citadel is this massive space station with, like, huge-ass arms with fully developed cities on them, and you only get to explore a few small areas of it. Small in scale to the station, because gameplay-wise, there's a lot of ground to cover, and you're going to be running around most of it on foot while you do the side quests. There is a fast travel system, but it's only in certain places.
Honestly, for something that's supposed to be this big, it probably would take an entire game's amount of space in order to have something that actually takes up that much scale, I think. So it needs to be spaced down, and in terms of gameplay, it's not like walking around. They would kind of be a little bit samey anyway, but at the same
You got to
time,
have some compromises.
yeah.
Now, this room right here, there was actually a video on role-playing games and storytelling in video games in general that highlighted this section, because you're supposed to go to the left, but instead you probably turned right, and then you talk to these guys, and then if you went through all of the dialogue, you'd get a massive lore dump on two completely original alien species that are both really interesting. Now, this short, stout guy in the pressure suit here, he's a Volus. They all wear these suits whenever you meet them. The reason they wear these suits is that unlike other alien species on the Citadel, they're used to a very high-pressure atmosphere, and if they were to take these suits off in this atmosphere, well, there wouldn't be enough air pressure for them and their skin would split open. Very messy.
Have you ever seen the ending of Total Recall?
Pretty much. It's pretty much that. The other species in this room, the Elcor, is actually played for laughs more often than not, because it's this big, lumbering, ponderous thing that can't actually speak verbally with any kind of nuance, so it has to clarify every emotion it's trying to convey through words. And they're so honest about it that when they advertise something, like, say, an Elcor run version of Shakespeare's Hamlet, they actually say the words "insincere endorsement" at the beginning of the advertisement.
It's also basically a callback to another BioWare game, Knights of the Old Republic, because there was a droid character known as HK-47 who always expressed his emotion going into a sentence. He would always say, "amused," or "angrily,"
Yeah. The reason the Elcor do this is because, among themselves, they actually convey meaning through slight movements and scent. And these are interesting details for me, because when I imagine actual aliens in the actual real world, I don't imagine blue space women. I imagine, aliens that are so far away from humanity in so many ways that they don't resemble us at all. And that's a thing that slightly annoys me about sci-fi, is that so many alien races are just humanoid. And in some cases, like Star Trek, that's so that you can have an actor in a costume to play them. But in a video game like Mass Effect, you don't really have that excuse, do you?
I know, she's an alien. She's totally an alien. She's just green,
Yeah. Now, can I fuck it?
Okay, Captain Kirk, cool your tits. All right.
Now, I'm not, I've made some cracks at the Asari, but they actually are very well written and explained for what they are. It's just that against the Turians, the Volus, all these other races that are very obviously alien, even if they have humanoid characteristics, the Asari just stick out as being very made to appeal to humans specifically, which, when I think about it at all, like, not even too much, but when I think about it at all, it takes me a bit out of the experience.
Oh, what, the
And that's-
experience of having sex with them?
All joking about sex scenes aside, all of the major Asari characters in this series are pretty well developed and some of my favorite characters. Although Liara Tassoni's story arc is kind of screwed over by the fact that she had to be relegated to DLC in the second game. and her arc between games is told in a not very good comic book. So,
Is there DLC for Mass Effect 1?
There are 2 DLC packs. I'll be showing one off right after we leave the Citadel, and the other one I will show off briefly, but only briefly, because it sucks. Not to put too fine a point on it. Yeah, I'm talking about Pinnacle Station. Fight me. The DLC comes free with the Origin version of the PC game though. So if you bought the game on Origin, then you already have the DLC pre-installed and you don't have to worry about it. But I think for PC users, no matter where you got it, you can download and install the game officially, the DLC officially for free either way. It still costs money on Xbox Live though.
What do you do here?
Man, Elcor conversations are so uninteresting to watch, and even more uninteresting when you can't hear what they're saying.
Light board expression.
So he said modestly. Can they lie beforehand?
They-
Or are they incapable?
They can, but lore suggests that they don't.
Untruthfully, I like you.
Sarcastically, yes, you are my favorite person on the ship, Commander Shepard.
They're the worst at poker.
Unconvincingly, I go all in.
Oh, man. It's a good thing Din Korlak is in this room, though, because he's just such a curmudgeon about humanity. And Din Korlak seems completely meaningless because you only ever talk to him in like this room until Mass Effect 3, where he does pop up during a side mission. It's not a very substantial side mission, but it was interesting to see him again.
I'd like to know more about the culture of the Elves.
You know, you can very clearly tell that they put a lot more effort into the faces of the humans than the aliens because his textures are very, very low res. Like you can count the pixels on some parts of his face.
Yeah, that's because the Elcor texture is mostly meant to be NPCs and NPCs only, whereas the human textures, well, most of the human textures apply to custom parts for Shepard. So, yeah. But, like, you see the best textures in the game on faces like your party members or Anderson, characters who have custom-made faces. Anything that's stock and generic looks stock and generic.
Yeah, I think one problem with the Mass Effect series in general is that they always try to go with the same design for a lot of races. Like, I don't think we see a Turian female until a DLC
Omega.
in Mass Effect 3.
Omega, yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't see a Krogan female until Mass Effect 3 either, but there's a lore reason for that.
Yeah, there's a lore reason for that, but
It's like
you run into a lot of the same kind of character type, and like when you see one Volus, you've kind of seen all the Volus. When you see one Elcor, you've kind of seen all the Elcor, you know.
Yeah, and like you see female and male Solarians, but they look the same. They just wear different clothes. The Quarians are the only race where you regularly see members of both gender, and they both have unique models.
Yeah.
Nice to see you again, Bob. I'm Jim. Sorry, Frank.
And even that only starts in Mass Effect 2, because the only Quarian you see in Mass Effect 1 is Tali. I don't think you ever encounter a second Quarian.
I don't believe so, no.
Yeah. I mean, you see Quarians around a lot in Mass Effect 2. But that's because they already had to make a crap ton of Quarians in for the trial mission. But you know, they kind of cheated with the Quarians in that case too, because the Quarians all wear pressure suits, environmental suits. So they only needed to make one model for each gender and one model for Tali.
Budgeted bastards.
And they just recolored them and gave them different voices, and that's how the Quarians have their personality. It's effective because the Quarians have there's sort of a mystery to their appearance, which is totally spoiled by the picture of Tali in Mass Effect 3, which was literally a photoshopped Google image stock photo.
Wait, really?
Yeah. They wanted. There's a situation in Mass Effect 3 we won't be seeing in this playthrough, so fuck me for spoiling it. The that if you side with the Geth and the Quarians die and Tali is still alive, she will kill herself. And if you romanced her when she killed herself, there will be a scene where Shepard is in his room and he's looking at a picture of Tali outside of her suit. It was a stock photo from Google Image that of a swimsuit model in a pose, and they photoshopped it to be blue-skinned and two-fingered, and it's horrible. There are mods to change it though, so you can fix the problem. But like, what the fuck?
You see,
It's just reminiscing over the Mass Effect 3 cover.
how obvious is the Photoshop job? Because like that's supposed
Very
to be
obvious if you look at the hands, because the hands are... Quarians have 2 fingers and thumbs, so they just sort of photoshopped off a couple fingers.
So what you're saying is they're Ninja Turtles.
That's a great way to ruin what should be an emotionally touching scene. Just gonna throw that out there.
I was going to say, I know for a fact, because my character romanced Tali throughout my playthrough. If you romance Tali and everything's hunky-dory between the Geth and the Quarians, you still get that picture, like, during the romance stuff. So you still see that picture even if she doesn't die.
Oh,
really?
yeah. Okay, I didn't know that. Well, it might have just popped up on the desk somewhere. Because I know there are romance photos in your room, and if you go close to them, they switch on and you see whoever you've romanced.
Yeah.
Every time I see these virtual hologram girls, Cortana is always the first thing I immediately think of when it comes to this sort of
Yeah.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, Avina doesn't have half the personality as Cortana. Avina is what's called a virtual intelligence, which... Well, basically, a more advanced version of the Cortana that's attached to Windows 10. It's not actually intelligent, just pre-programmed to respond to specific things. And if you actually do say something that is not programmed to respond to, it'll... Well,
right there.
it just...
Explode.
Perfect timing. I am not programmed to make that kind of qualified judgment. So yeah, there are actually laws against true artificial intelligence because of the Geth. The story behind the Geth is that the Quarians created them as virtual intelligences to handle cheap labor and soldiers and to be soldiers and stuff. The thing about the Geth is that they were programmed with a unique kind of networked intelligence that would make them operate as a smarter, cohesive unit when they were together in greater and greater numbers. Eventually, this system got so complex that it became a true artificial intelligence, and the Geth started to ask questions like, does this unit have a soul?
Oh,
And so the Quarians freaked out and tried to deactivate them all, but the Geth...
Ooh, it's
the
time
Geth-
to unplug that baby.
Yeah, the Geth scattered across all the Quarian worlds, caught on a little too quickly, and fought back and drove the Quarians into exile. So now the Quarians, they live in a fleet of ships, and their immune systems were weak to begin with because of the way their world's atmosphere and bacteria ecosystem worked. When they were on the sterile outer space ship environment, their immune systems went completely to crap, which is why they're in pressure suits, because they get infections like nobody's business otherwise. So yeah.
You stare
I
at
just-
Avina, you get the clap.
Oh man.
I'm guessing this is all elaborated upon in game later. Is
Yeah,
it, or is
yeah.
it like hidden in codex and things like
Well,
that?
you get information about the Quarians piecemeal by either reading the codex or talking to Tali aboard the ship once you recruit her.
Okay. Can you
So, all right,
can you not necessarily skip, but can you miss party members in this game
Yeah.
easily?
Yes.
Okay.
There are 2 party members that you can recruit or not recruit while you're here on the Citadel that will that you can just tell them to fuck off if you want. I get them both. But you can skip over them if you want. And
All right. Let me ask a question. Let you finish first, because mine's kind of a loaded question.
I was gonna say I think they're both still elements in the future games if you don't recruit them, and you might get different dialogue, but you can skip them if you want.
All right. So, as a person who didn't really like all the data logs in, say, a game like Final Fantasy 13, is the codex in this game Would you say better, worse, or just about the same?
Well, for one thing, the major important codex entries are voice narrated by a guy that sounds very much like the narrator from the Jurassic Park truck. They spared no expense on that one. So they're a little bit more engaging, at least in the main codex area. But the thing about the codex entries in Mass Effect 1 specifically is that they're fed to you in very short bursts. In fact, a lot of them you have to find in the environment by examining certain objects, which gets you experience points on top of getting the codex.
Also,
So
it's like scanning stuff in Prime.
Somewhat, yeah. It's a lot more like Metroid Prime than Final Fantasy 13. Final Fantasy 13's codex entries barely explained anything about the world anyway. If I were to explain the codex entries, I would compare them a lot more to the bits of world lore that you would get from the hunting log in Final Fantasy 12.
Okay.
I also went through my first playthroughs of Mass Effect without ever looking at the codex. And I pretty much knew everything I needed to know about the characters and their races and how they... Because every time you talk to people, they always have lots of things to exposit. They have lots of things to say about their cultures and stuff. You don't really need codex because it's all told to you, too.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, and that sets it apart from stuff like the datalog, really. Because the problem with the datalog wasn't that the datalog was there, it's that the game didn't explain stuff outside the datalog.
Yeah, like, if you want to look stuff up, it's good to have it there. It's like, reading an encyclopedia can be interesting if you're legitimately curious about the stuff that you want to know. But if you're trying to look for an explanation about something, reading an encyclopedia is really fucking boring. So,
yeah, just be warned. If you start with Mass Effect 2 or 3, you get a massive codex dump of most of the stuff you had in Mass Effect 1 at the very beginning of the game.
Mass Effect 1 definitely introduces the world. Mass Effect 2 and 3 assumes you're familiar with it.
Yeah. Now it's time to talk to the Citadel Council. These are the big movers and shakers of the Galactics. They're basically the United Nations, only with fewer actual people there.
There's 3 of them.
Yeah, these are the 3 major races that control the majority of Citadel space. The Turians are basically the military might. They were the last ones to be invited because they helped win a very bloody war. The Solarians are the science people. They do science stuff. They also talk fast, live fast, and die fast. They live to about 40.
I also like that the Solarians kind of look like what we imagined aliens to look like. You know, the beady eyes, the Roswell aliens kind of thing.
Oh, we were right.
Yeah, and according to Javik, they used to eat flies and lick their eyes, so... Although he might have been joking about that. Javik in Mass Effect 3 has a weird sense of humor.
I see the 3 people, the 3 alien races up there, and I don't think so much about a UN-esque meeting, but more like an intergalactic game of Jeopardy.
And Sean Connery.
Yeah.
Now, the Asari are a race composed entirely of women. Stereotypically, they are the diplomats of the Council. They like to talk, apparently. So yeah.
What do humans bring to the equation exactly? Or is nobody really sure?
Metagel. They invented Metagel. Metagel is it's a bioplasm that was biologically engineered, and technically creating Metagel broke council laws, but it turned out to be so fucking useful that nobody could, stand to say this is illegal now.
Wait,
I just can't say no to it.
What about making it is so terrible that they can't?
It's just a general intergalactic. It's just a general galactic law against biological engineering in general. But Metagel is a bioplasm that has very, very diverse medical usage.
Metagel is Turian!
Oh, wait a minute! It's the antibiotic gel from Trauma Center! Okay, that makes sense.
I suppose. It's like a gel that adheres to a wound, congeals over top of it to seal it completely, and then promotes healing. So it's basically a liquid bandage.
Don't we kind of have something like that already?
Yeah, Neosporin.
Well, Metagel is kind of like the sonic screwdriver of first aid. It just does whatever the fuck the game needs it to.
Oh, so those little, healing tubes they have in Dragon Ball Z are just full of Metagel, then, okay.
Nah, that's what we call Bacta. Get your sci-fi right, man.
Every colony we have is at risk.
But yeah, basically the council wouldn't listen to us, so we need to go hunting around for evidence that Saren is actually on the side of evil now.
Things went bad. Real bad.
But Your Honor, he clearly talks like an asshole.
I know just the guy to get on the case. Phelps, you're on.
Oh man. Now I didn't mention this when Garrus was actually on screen because we were on the Codex tangent, but there's a glitch in the port of the PC version that will always cause Garrus Vicarian's facial textures to show at low res, regardless of your graphics setting.
No, it's a facial mask.
You can fiddle with the config files to get it to show as medium quality instead of low quality, but that's the best you're going to get without modding.
Do high-res text, do like high textures just not exist for him, or?
No, his facial texture in the console version is his high-res texture. It's just that the PC version has a weird bug that causes him to always show his low-res textures, which is a shame because his high-res textures look really nice.
So in one scene he looks just fine, and in another scene he looks like a clay golem.
Yeah.
Harkin's probably getting drunk at Cora's dinner.
Now, Harkin is a character that we're going to see in Mass Effect 2, coincidentally in connection with Garrus.
You should talk to Barla Vaughn over in the financial.
But Barla Vaughn is another character who appears again in Mass Effect 3. Both of these characters show up again, and both of them will have short dialogue acknowledgments if you happen to meet them during the upcoming set of missions. But this is actually a path that you can choose to take along your. You can choose to take your own path for. You can either talk to Barla Vaughn or talk to Harkins. Either one will get you what you need to proceed with the story. One of them directs you toward Garrus, the other one directs you toward Rex. The thing is, you can recruit Rex without ever talking to either of them, I think.
Yeah, Rex always shows up just as you're going onto the Normandy.
Just a resource we can use. Or she.
So can you miss Garrus, I should say, can you miss him if you go for Rex now, or can you get him later too?
I think it's possible to miss Garrus pretty easily. I don't think he will chase after you like Rex does. But
I think, isn't Garrus mandatory, I feel like? Don't you always have to visit Dr. Michelle?
I don't think so, because Dr. Michelle is what Harkins directs you to.
He's been an embarrassment to our species ever since.
Yeah, probably.
Roughing up suspects.
I just know when I recently replayed it last week, I did the Garrus pathway, but...
Either way, if you're playing a racist asshole who hates Turians, you can say, fuck off, Garrus, I don't like Turians. And that's one of the weird incongruities between Mass Effect 1 and 2 and 3, is that in Mass Effect 1, you can express some serious anti-alien sentiments.
Oh, yeah.
But
There's
Mass
a big
Effect 2,
difference in tone from 1 to 2 and 3, because 1 is very much racially, politically charged, you know? And you can kind of make Shepard into a xenophobic, humans first, humans need to control the galaxy, and every other alien's gonna be underneath us kind of personality.
I'm going to build a great space wall. I'm going to have the Turians pay for it.
In fact, while Paragon playthroughs in the Mass Effect trilogy tend to keep the same general tone for Shepard, Renegade Shepard in Mass Effects 1, 2, and 3, he has 3 distinct personalities for each game. Mass Effect 1, Pure Renegade, is not only an asshole, but an absolute racist. Mass Effect 2's take on Renegade is hilarious, monotone badass, with no real racial or political,
So, a loose cannon.
Yeah. And Mass Effect 3 plays Renegade as a more sympathetic kind of character. Like, you're kind of like you're doing what needs to be done. You're being harsh about it, but goddamn, are you tired of this war?
This is war, damn it.
Yeah, that's the personality Renegade Shepard puts forth in that game. So if you're playing a Renegade playthrough of all 3 games back to back, it's going to be a bit of a weird transition.
So yeah, by the third game, it's like, am I still racist? Or...
And within the game, you can sort of argue that after the events of Mass Effect 1, Shepard, as a renegade, got his priorities a little more straight and stopped thinking about humans because he had bigger fish to fry. Bigger robot cuttlefish, to be more precise. But, yeah, I just feel like Renegade is pretty poorly handled in the long run.
It's just weird because, like, in Mass Effect 1, there's this big emphasis on you being a Spectre, which is sort of like the Jedi secret agent, just above the law kind of special forces that can do whatever you want at any risks necessary, at any needs necessary, so that you can maintain peace in the galaxy. And, you know, you're also trying to boost humans, and whether humans are seen as, like, a really peaceful diplomatic force that aliens want to join with, or as this dictatorship that wants to crush all aliens and be above all aliens and stuff. And then Mass Effect 2 just sort of jumps you into this whole different scenario where, you know, now you have to take the fight to the Reapers, and all of a sudden the Spectre thing, the alien races in relation to humans thing, all of that stuff just sort of goes to the wayside, and it becomes a little bit of a different story. Mass Effect 1 definitely feels a lot different from 2 and 3 in many ways.
Yeah, there's a lot more subtext to Mass Effect 1. Mass Effect 2's and 2 and 3 have their plot is in your face, and the themes that Mass Effect 1 was playing around with beneath the surface kind of just fall away. They're still there, but when they do come up, it's almost cartoonish how they're handled.
I think, from what I can tell, based on the way you're describing it and what I've seen so far, Mass Effect 1 was trying to be much more traditionally sci-fi. Whereas, basically,
Yeah,
the whole point of science fiction, I'll just be quick, in like traditional books is like, traditional sci-fi books, I should say, is to use invented technology to ask questions about real world things. Like in this case, race relationships with aliens kind of being somewhat of a metaphor of race relations in the real world. So
And national relations, international relations is a lot of it's very international.
yeah, but that's also a touchy subject, which I can imagine EA wanted them to be like, "Whoa, we can't like offend people, no." So I'm guessing that's probably why it got toned down a little bit in the sequels.
Well, EA did pressure them to tone some things down when Mass Effect 2 was being made, but the only thing I've heard definite word on as far as that goes is Mass Effect 2 is oddly the only game in the series without any homosexual relationships until you download the Liara DLC that was made much later.
Even if
Mr.
you're a
EA
woman
president,
with...
actual Turian, line 2, sounds pissed.
The line, as I heard it, was that EA claimed that players did not want to hear about Garrus being gay in someone else's playthrough, which is a dumb line of logic and pretty goddamn insulting to players, if you don't mind me saying. But yeah, so every romance option in Mass Effect 2 was straight, except for the awkward hug you shared with Liara if you romanced her in the first game.
Oh, okay. She's the Asari character, right?
Yeah. And
okay.
you didn't get anything explicit until Lair of the Shadow Broker was released, after which people had already bitched about there not being any homosexual relationships, and EA had backed off.
Okay.
So,